Can the Susan Shore device or DIY copies such as the Guinea Guy device treat and suppress hyperacusis? If we are to believe this excerpt from the Tinnitus Labs frequently asked questions document provided to device customers, then we'd assume the answer is yes. However, the treatment in question does not treat hyperacusis or related sound tolerance disorders. That is the correct starting point. Medical efficacy is not assumed and then retroactively justified through anecdotes. It is established through independent evidence and plausible mechanisms before claims are made. In this case, no such evidence exists. Let's hear from Dr. Susan Shore on the matter, shall we?
Can the device also help with related conditions such as hyperacusis, dysacusis, tonic tensor tympani syndrome, or visual snow syndrome?
Well, the treatment that we've developed was based on an altered tinnitus circuit. And it wasn't based on testing these other conditions, for hyperacusis. So I would say no, that it probably wouldn't help these other conditions because it wasn't designed specifically on the circuit that the different circuit might be involved in these other conditions.
An important note on what she's about to say. Co-occur does not mean treatable with the same intervention. It simply means that a patient may have both tinnitus and hyperacusis symptoms at the same time.
That said, there is some commentary in the literature that hyperacusis and tinnitus share some similarities in that they often co-occur with each other.
Yeah.
But in our work in the lab, we have some findings that suggest that hyperacusis is really governed by a different circuit, and that's initiated in the ventral cochlear nucleus and not in the dorsal cochlear nucleus. So just thinking about the two different disorders, tinnitus is a disorder of spontaneous activity. It's a disorder in the absence of stimulation, whereas hyperacusis is a disorder at the opposite end of the auditory stimulus, in that it's a disorder of high intensities, and it's a sound-driven disorder. So while there might be some overlap in the occurrence of these two disorders, at the moment, I don't think that their mechanisms overlap sufficiently that our device would also help with hyperacusis.
Okay.
To summarize, she said that her device would not treat hyperacusis. She acknowledges that tinnitus and hyperacusis often co-occur, but the mechanism of hyperacusis has no significant overlap with tinnitus that would allow her treatment to suppress it. She uses the phrase, "I don't think," because scientists sometimes avoid absolutist statements when they haven't done exhaustive research. So where did the claim that the device or its copies could treat hyperacusis come from? Claims that a copy of the device could treat hyperacusis originated not from clinical trials, researchers, or clinicians, but from the individual selling a copy of the device. This guy. He began setting the narrative as early as June 2024. While making reference to some comments in the patent about hyperacusis, he said, "The chances of it helping are pretty high," while citing some claims of hyperacusis suppression from some DIY Reddit dudes. In September of that year, a member of the DIY Discord server for making a copy of your own Susan Shore device blurted out into the chat, "My H is completely gone." H meaning hyperacusis. The member had been experimenting, treating himself with his homemade device, so naturally people were curious if it was related to the treatment. Anthony saw the message and immediately said, "Gotta make an update with this," meaning a DIY Susan Shore device treatment update for his YouTube channel. As other members inquired about the DIYer's hyperacusis and whether the treatment had been the reason for his improvement, he stated twice that due to his variable hyperacusis, the device treatment may have had nothing to do with the improvement. However, apparently Anthony ignored this and just assumed that the claims about hyperacusis were related to the device. Or he perhaps just wanted his future customers to believe that to be so. 5 days later, after another DIYer announced on the server that his tinnitus had been silenced. Anthony made an impromptu video update announcing the silence and that the first DIYer had experienced total suppression of his hyperacusis from his device use.
Another one of them has reached a full suppression of their hyperacusis, and I'm at a loss for words. Actually, I just received this news right now from our internal Discord server, and yeah, I mean, I can't say anything else. Total suppression, that's crazy.
As a side note, the DIYer whose tinnitus was silenced had it return a few hours later after he had some coffee and chocolate. The following day, the DIYer whose hyperacusis was supposedly suppressed posted to the DIY server. "Hey Anthony, I saw your video about H. I don't know if it's SSD related. My H came back, but it's very mild. Please next time wait for confirmation before posting something. Otherwise people will think you're a layer." He meant liar. As of early 2026, the video titled "Tinnitus Silence Achieved, Hyperacusis Gone" is still published to Anthony's channel. Despite being warned about being called a liar, Anthony continued to claim that the DIY device could suppress hyperacusis, next citing his own supposed experience.
But if we're talking about hyperacusis, I did a whole bunch of tests. After the session, I immediately went to get a haircut. And at the haircut, they usually play like really loud music, and the music didn't seem so loud anymore. And I could also handle the fan without plugging my ears, the hair dryer that they use there. So I decided to continue testing my hyperacusis, and I went and I stood next to the highway next to my house with buses and cars passing by. Like, I could just stand there comfortably. And once I confirmed this to be true, after standing there for a few minutes and realizing that, yeah, my hyperacusis is definitely better, and at least in this area, I came back home and I turned on like my favorite song. This is the volume setting that I normally had for when I listen to music, and for it to be comfortable volume, I had to turn it up to about here. So it went from about here to about here. And after doing some decibel tests, the shift in the volume of the song was about 10 decibels. So I guess you could say that my hyperacusis, or my loudness discomfort levels, improved by about 10 decibels, which is very significant for one session, actually.
He had set a narrative, his customers and DIYers who trusted him, viewing him as an authority on tinnitus, hyperacusis, and spike timing-dependent plasticity, then expected the device to treat hyperacusis. While his guinea guy device trial was underway, he published a video to update his followers on the data he was collecting from customers.
Now, has anybody actually improved objectively? And the answer to that question is yes. Some people already have. There have been improvements in tinnitus, and there have been very significant hyperacusis improvements as well. And there were also very significant improvements in this person's hyperacusis as well. Pretty much there was an overall LDL, or loudness discomfort level, stabilization, no more constant worsening, significant low frequency LDL improvement, faraway traffic sounds like normal and quieter. Airplanes and the garbage truck don't sound as monstrous and loud. Of course, the user has also started seeing some improvement in their overall tolerance, meaning that they don't worsen as easily.
Suppression of hyperacusis in this scenario can plausibly be explained by a combination of expectancy bias, placebo effects, and natural symptom fluctuations. Being told that the treatment would suppress hyperacusis creates expectations that can alter perception, while placebo mechanisms can produce real neurobiological changes affecting sound tolerance. Importantly, this does not mean that the patient is imagining things or being dishonest. The improvement can feel entirely real and be physiologically grounded. At the same time, hyperacusis naturally varies over time, so improvement may coincide with treatment by chance. Taken together, this suggests the observed effects on hyperacusis arose from these non-specific factors rather than from the treatment's proposed mechanism. in this case bimodal stimulation. In such cases where these non-specific factors are at play, the perceived suppression of hyperacusis absolutely still matters for the patient. But what you can't do is then use their experience to make claims about what the treatment can accomplish. Without controlled evidence, the perceived improvement of hyperacusis symptoms cannot be attributed to the treatment itself, because it could be fully explained by expectancy effects, placebo mechanisms, and natural symptom variability. In other words, clinical benefit does not equal proof of mechanism or indication. The outcome is meaningful, but it doesn't justify causal or marketing claims about what the treatment does. A note on the placebo effect. Placebo effects are not determined simply by symptom severity. They can meaningfully be reduced, even when the symptoms are severe, especially when the symptoms are subjective, like pain, tinnitus, or hyperacusis. However, placebo effects are often largest on average or moderate symptoms, because very mild symptoms have little room to improve, and very severe ones are often more constrained by underlying biology. Placebo effects can occur across the full range of symptom severity, from mild to severe. So when someone says,
I'm not susceptible to placebo because I'm not a wild whiner,
that is a misunderstanding of how the placebo effect functions. In the case of the Dini Guy device, the Susan Shore device sold by Tinnitus Labs, everything we've just covered applies not only to hyperacusis, but to all other sound tolerance disorders, as well as tinnitus. This is because the DIY community, including Tinnitus Labs, is reproducing the device based on publicly available information. However, key details from the literature may have been misunderstood or omitted altogether. There may even be more customers whose hyperacusis, noise-induced pain, and tinnitus were worsened by treatment preparation and device use than those who experienced benefit.